Hey ladies and gents, this is Brian Abarca and welcome to the Abarcast. We finally have a name now. This is episode 3 where we will be talking about my humble beginnings. All right. So just letting you guys know, we're going to be going from my humble beginnings all the way into my questions, where I post every Monday. Question Mondays, ask me any questions about fitness, business, entrepreneurship, about myself, etc. All right, so episode 3, humble beginnings. Well, it all started, wow, we're speaking about grade school here. We're speaking about my time back in St. Brendan's in Clifton, New Jersey, where I used to trade Yu-Gi-Oh cards and pens. For all my St. Brendan graduates there, I know what you guys are thinking. You guys are having flashbacks right now. I'm having flashbacks. I think that's where the inner entrepreneur came out, where I used to trade Yu-Gi-Oh cards in specifics. I used to have huge decks, containers of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and I'm talking about, what is this, the early 2000s. This is first grade through maybe third or fourth grade, where I used to literally trade Exodia cards. What else are they called? Blue Eyes Black Dragon, Red Eyes Black Dragon, Black Eyed Black Dragon. I don't know what other cards there are, but I remember those are the go-tos, and I used to trade them literally for homework, for better cards, for a lot more cards, for shittier cards. That used to be the currency for grade school back in the early 2000s. Shout out to all my St. Brendan kids out there. But I feel like that's where I literally came out from, trading small amount of cards to bigger cards, so that eventually I can get my homework done, so that I could eventually get some currency and capital in, whether it's $2 or $5 or $10. And then little did we know, we started transitioning and growing out of the card game and getting into pens. How stupid does that sound? There used to be a drugstore. I'm not going to call it out because I'm pretty sure it's closed now, but there used to be a drugstore down the street from my grade school where, unfortunately, I used to have sticky fingers back in the day. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say this, but I used to have sticky fingers back in the day, and I used to take some pens, those Dr. Grips and all that stuff, the gel pens. And how, as stupid as it sounds, my friends and I used to trade pens. We used to trade shittier pens for better pens, and then better pens for even good pens. There used to be, I didn't even know this, but there used to be pens for $20, $15. Like, for what? We're gonna fucking write that shit down and then just toss it away and then fucking lose it. But that's what we used to do back in grade school, all up until 8th grade. I think there was a few of us that even got in trouble, got suspended, etc. Like, it was so bad. But the Dr. Grips used to be the shit back in the day. And I remember I used to trade them for, trade them for money, trade them for better pens. Oh man, that used to be the shit. And we used to get in trouble for them as well. But now that we're speaking about grade school, I used to be a bad kid. Like, I'm not sure if it came from, growing up without a father or trying to grab some attention, but who raised me were my grandparents. Number one, I was born in the United States, in Jersey, in Wayne, and then I was raised in Peru, where I was raised and brought up by my grandparents. And then by the age around 4 to 5, I came back to the U.S. I went through those ESL classes and all that jazz. I learned English. Spanish was my first language. Ironically, now my family still call me a gringo whenever I speak Spanish, but then when I speak to other Spanish people, they're like, "Oh no, you just sound Dominican." I don't know what that means. Anyway, so with that, I ended up getting into trouble. So, my grandparents still raised me here in Jersey. My mother was, I love her to death. My mother was there financially most of the time. She was a single mom, love her to death. She had 3 jobs. I have a sister. She was 4 years older than me. So my mother tried to get my sister and I through Catholic school and through private school. Hence probably the pens and all that stuff. But once she was getting us through that, my sister was such a good student, yet I wasn't conduct wise. My aunt, who's a teacher, I call her my mom as well. She always, engraved in me to always have good grades. I always need to have good grades for college, etc. And I didn't really try back in grade school, but I tried just enough where I needed to just put a little bit of effort. And I was just a B student, mostly B's, sometimes A's. And my mom and my grandparents and my aunt would always tell me, listen, just try a little harder. Just imagine if you tried a little harder, you would be straight A's. But I told them, I was like, listen, I still want to have fun. I still want to hang out with my friends. I don't want to study that much. I want to watch TV. WWF, WWE was the shit back in the day. So I just wanted to stay up and watch, Monday Night Raw. And I didn't want to try that much. And I was satisfied with just being a B student. So why I'm getting into this is so that I could just kind of just try to give those B students, those C students, those D students, or even F students, or even A students, some type of motivation to kind of just push through and try to reach where they're trying to get to. But just getting back into my story, I was a B student, and I will always, always, always get suspended in grade school. Just imagine that, I'm a first grader to 8th grader. I'm over here getting suspended for stealing pens, for talking in class, for starting shit in class, for starting snowball fights outside of school, etc. But my excuse would be, but I have good grades. Like I can come up with all this BS in school, but my backup would just be, I have good grades, so, I can. It's not like I'm one of those kids that are flunking in school and then being a shit student either, So that would always be my go-to. I would always tell that to my mom, tell that to my aunt. My sister was almost like one of the people that raised me as well, along with my grandparents. So that would be my excuse, unfortunately, is whether it's good, whether it's bad, it's, I'm here to share, and it's up to you guys. And I would talk back to my teachers. But yeah, I was a really bad student. I was horrible. Conduct wise, again, I was a B student. I was an A student. But getting from the suspensions in grade schools, I still went to a private school in high school. I went to Primus Catholic in New Jersey. That school was great, and yet again, I was still one of those first honor, second honor students who would yet still get suspended for some reason. And I think on record, I actually was expelled from that school as well. Unfortunately, yeah. Again, I was conduct-wise, I was horrible. Like, it got to the point where, like, I would literally play as a mime in the middle of a class in high school. I would pretend to throw a lasso to a professor, and he would just say, "Mr. Abarca, stop." And I would just act like I just caught him, and I would drag my desk towards him. And then when he would just, try to get the telephone to call the principal, my ass will disconnect the phone. My friends will disconnect the phone. And oh man, that was just crazy stories where I was just a piece of shit of a student. I was really bad. I'm so sorry for any teachers out there that knew me, and I was a piece of shit to you guys. At least I had good grades. I was always a first honor student, second honor student. And again, whenever I was sent home outside of school suspension, or even expelled, I would just tell my mom, tell my aunt, tell my sister, tell my grandparents, hey, listen, like there's, deep down inside, I didn't know this yet, but I was just like, hey, listen, I'm getting good grades. Let me act up. I'm a guy. I don't care. But deep down inside, maybe I just wanted extra attention because I wouldn't get attention at home. Either that or I wanted attention because I, didn't have a father. Unfortunately, my aunt, who's obviously a female, she's the one that actually taught me how to shave, which sucked. I didn't have that father figure except for my grandfather, but at that time he was, in his 60s and 70s. So, and there was that language barrier where he would speak in Spanish, and all he would just recommend is just to always use a condom and not get anyone pregnant. That's literally what he wouldn't care about anything else, but literally not receive any great grandchildren. That's a fun memory, but, yeah, my aunt would teach me how to shave, just imagine that. Or, imagine not getting the father-son talk and literally Googling what a father-son talk is and Googling, all that stuff. It was unfortunate, but I guess there's a plus to being raised by women. I do have a sensitive side. I have my heart on my sleeve. Weirdly enough, I do understand women more than a lot of other guys. But yeah, like that was my childhood. It was pretty crazy. It got to the point where there was times where I even got caught in closets of my girlfriend's, my girlfriend's house. And it was horrible because it got to the point where we would be messing around in her room, and I don't know what happened. I think I left for some reason I took a shower there. Either I took a shower there, I was in the bathroom there, and for some reason I left my chain inside the bathroom of her house, and we were messing around in her room, and for some reason someone, I don't know whether it was the mom or the father, but someone saw my chain, connected the dots, knocked on the room, and was just kind of like, who the fuck is in there? And we took so long to even reply to the question, to the point where this girl, she was just kind of like, wait, hold on, I'm getting dressed. I was just like, oh shit, we're definitely fucked. So I literally threw myself into the closet and I was laid down. My feet were almost sticking out. And I remember her opening the door to her mother. Her mother literally almost trying to smack her. She dodges it like the Matrix, runs out, and then she ends up leaving me there in the room. Imagine that. So she ends up opening the closet door. My stank ass feet is sticking out. She grabs me by the collar and she literally tells me, if I ever see you around here again, I will kill you. She literally tells me that. So, and I believed her because she was Hispanic. So what I did was I grabbed my shit. I literally ran out of there, and that was the beginning of the end of that relationship that I always refer about. That put me in depression, along with the diagnosis of prostate cancer with my grandfather. So next thing flash forward a few days, few weeks, I'm taking my grandfather to his chemotherapy sessions. So I'm using my mother's car to take him to his therapy sessions where he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And that really got me depressed, especially after my whole breakup with that one person. And I was just in that state of mind where I was just like, shit, at school, I'm dealing with something. At home, I'm dealing with something else. I will never forget that one time where I'm literally, at that time, I had a whole floor to myself at my mother's house. And I will never forget the moment where my mother literally tells me, she sits me down and she shares the news with me. And I have no choice but to just start pouring crying. Because this is my father. My grandparents raised me until I was 5. But, then again, it got to the point where even since when I moved here, I was still coming home to them and acknowledging them as my parents instead of, my mother, who, again, She was there financially. She was a single mom. She had 3 jobs. My aunt, who was also a teacher, she was not there, all the time, just because she had, other responsibilities. So my grandparents really took that responsibility to raise me and my sister, especially me. So it was pretty tough, to see the only male figure in my family, to hear them, and to hear someone say you have cancer. You automatically already think, all right, this person's going to die, whether it's, a stage 1 or stage 4, so it really did hurt me. It got to the point where I didn't realize this, but a lot of my friends, a lot of my fellow students ended up telling me that I was losing a lot of weight. And I didn't realize this. I was like, oh, I feel fine. Like, I still have an appetite. I'm still eating, but they would tell me, oh yeah, I'm skinny. Like, to be completely frank, I remember hearing on a class trip, my ex literally telling me, hey, listen, like, you're literally skinny. You're skinnier than me. And that really stuck with me for weeks and months. And that really hurt, but it was, what really hurt the most is literally seeing my grandfather go through, the at-home procedures, like putting, a tube through his, dick hole. And just imagine that. Like, imagine for a man how painful that is, especially with prostate cancer. Like, it was horrible. Like, there was times where I had to help him off the bed, and it was tough. And dealing with all those things, I needed an outlet. I needed somewhere to release my stress. And I was always angry. I was always in a bad mood. And it got to the point where, like, I would just get at it with my mother, with my aunt, my grandparents, even my sister, especially. So, unfortunately, they didn't understand. And I didn't understand at that time. I was young. So, during that time, I started kind of getting interested in sneakers back in high school. So this is where the entrepreneur from Yu-Gi-Oh cards and pens kind of gets into high school, where I'm literally buying Nike SBs and Jordans to either trade for more expensive sneakers or even sell them for profit, and cash. So my mother used to give me $20 as lunch money every week for lunch. And me being in a private school, lunch would be literally maybe $7. Little did she know, for $20, I could probably have 3 lunches in the span of 5 days. So she didn't know that. And I'm not going to tell her, hey, listen, I need more money, because she was pretty cheap, obviously, too. So it got to a point where, like, I was like, fuck it. I am just going to munch off my friend's food. I would kind of eat a Pop-Tart here and there. I would eat some fries here and there. And what I would do is I would save up those $20 a week, $20 a week, until I would get $200. And usually at that time, new releases for Jordans would be $200, even the rare ones. So I would buy and meet up random people. And at that time, we didn't have social media like we do today. I would meet up random people from Facebook and MySpace. Hey, you're selling X, Y, and Z. I want to buy X, Y, and Z for $200. So I would buy. There was a point where I had literally, by the year of 2011, I had every single type of Jordan 13s, lows and highs. I'm talking about the Flints. I'm talking about the Breads. I'm talking about the Black Cats. I'm talking about the chutneys, the OG chutneys. I would have and own all those 13s, and I would flip them for cash, flip them for better sneakers, flip them for cash, flip them for better sneakers. And that would have been my currency to take out, my high school girlfriends on a date. I would keep that cash for money. I would keep that cash to just save up for whatever I would want. And that's when I got the itch of the entrepreneurship. And it wasn't, I wasn't Gary Veeing it. I wasn't saying, I'm going to do this for the process. I was actually doing it because I loved making profit and I loved the sneakers. And unfortunately, I kind of, hung up my boots and retired all the sneakers just because this was in college, just because it got to the point where like I was kind of like, yo, like I'm stepping on these things and I'm investing so much money in them. Why would I be buying more than $400, $300, $600 sneakers when I'm just stepping on them and increasing them? And there was a point where during college, fast forward where my girlfriend at the time, she ended up buying a pair of Jordan 8s Chromes that I've always wanted since I was literally in grade school, since I was in 8th grade. And this was a time when the Jordan 8s were like the go-to sneakers. Like if you had Jordan 8s, you could get any girl you want in high school, in grade school, at the mall, etc., at the movies. You could get any type of girl. So I just wanted the 8 Chromes, and I finally got them. And it was like as if I got the itch of the sneaker fever again. And since then, I've been collecting sneakers. It's like a drug. It's really bad. Anyway, so going back into the high school days, I ended up getting an invitation to go to the gym with, one of my friends, and we would go to a commercial gym and we would just be there for 3 or 4 hours. We literally had absolutely no work, no job. We had nothing to do after work, after school, I mean. And we would get dismissed by like 1 or 2 p.m. and we would be at the gym for like 2-3 hours. And at this time, I did not know what a chest press was. I did not know what a push-up is. I didn't even know what a squat was. And I would just go straight to the machines and just learn the basic movements. And I would look at the descriptions. Then I fell in love with the stress relief of working out, sweating my anger away. And it was almost like therapeutic for me. Like it loosened me up to the point where I got home, I would eat, and I would never, ever, ever feel angry again. So I can honestly say it saved me from depression. It was really, it was a blessing in disguise. I remember where I told my aunt, who I call mom, she used to be in the military. She was military intelligence. And I told her, I was like, hey, listen, like I'm starting to work out. I'm starting to build muscle. She used to compliment my little guns and my abs and stuff like that. And I told her, I was like, listen, I'm starting to work out almost every day after school. Is there anything I could, try to improve so I could, look and feel better? And I did not share my stress relief with her yet. So she told me, she was like, yeah, like let's go to GNC. She took me to GNC and we literally went on a shopping spree. We bought like 4 or 5 tubs of mass gainers of like protein powders that actually help you gain weight. That's almost like a meal replacement. So I'm talking about every serving is 3 scoops, and every serving is more than 1,000 calories. I would take that twice a day, plus servings of food. Servings of dinner, servings of lunch, or something what my mother would eat, or would cook, my grandmother would cook. And if you actually think about the caloric breakdown, I would take 2 servings of a mass gainer, which is already 2,000 calories. I was already about 140 pounds at that time. And then on top of that, I would eat Hispanic, Latin, Peruvian foods, which is high in calorie already by itself. So within a year span, I gained maybe a solid, maybe like 60 or 70 pounds. It was crazy. Like it got to the point, no, was it 60? No, I'm exaggerating. I'm sorry. It was maybe 50 pounds, 50 or 60 pounds. Cause I started my fitness journey when I was about 135 pounds. And I actually, within a year, I reached 200 tops. I was never 201. I reached 200 and I was like, holy shit. Like I just gained almost 60, 70 pounds. It was insane. It was crazy. It got to a point where like I would see my high school friends freshman year in college and they literally thought I was on juice, I was on candy, I was on steroids. Like I would have stretch marks from growing so fast. You know how like pregnant women get stretch marks in their belly? I used to have stretch marks all over my arms because I grew so fast. They were red. They weren't even like the bare skin color. It was red. And it literally, like, I was so self-conscious. My mother was self-conscious. Even my uncle was just like, listen, like, that looks so ugly. Are you sure you don't have anything wrong with you? You might have a disease, etc. No, it was just stretch. I grew so fast. It was crazy. And then it got to a point where like I just fell in love with feeling big, being called big, you know, and literally having other people almost become intimidated by the time I enter a room. It felt so amazing, so great, because I was always a skinny kid. I was a skinny kid with a big ass head. Like imagine me 110 to 120, 130 pounds tops, and I'm Peruvian. Peruvians have big heads. Like my ex-girlfriend used to call me a lollipop. It was bad. So imagine that, and imagine just like the high I felt of being complimented all the time. So that was me finally, you know, scratching my itch of, wow, like this is something I love. And at that time, ironically, I was trying to look for a major in college. And I thought, you know what? My mother's pushing me to go to the community college instead of a state college. I don't know if she loved my sister more than me, or, you know, she wanted to go the cheaper route. I'd hope she wanted to go to the cheaper route. But that's why I went to the community college for my first 2 years in college. And I majored in exercise science. Once I majored there, I fell in love with like learning about kinesiology and the biomechanics and biology and anatomy, etc. And I thought, you know what? A lot of people are majoring in exercise science to get into physical therapy. Maybe I want to become a physical therapist. I loved the anatomy part and I loved helping people. And at this time, I was around 18. I was already kind of like freelance training here and there at different gyms for free, you know, and again, I did it for free just to get my name out there. Just don't make the mistake of always of thinking you're worthy when you have no track record. You know, this is great advice for young entrepreneurs and business owners out there who really feel like my time is worthy, even though I have no track record, even though I have no history of, you know, selling my service. My time is worth something, and it's not like that. You have to earn your stripes in the real world, you know. And this is something that you don't learn in college or in life or in school. You know, you learn by experience. You have to earn your stripes by doing things for free. They admire and realize your qualities in the services that you offer, and then next thing you know, that's when you maybe put a price on it, and then that's when they start telling their friends, and then that's when they start telling their family, and then that's how you build a network so that you could get more, more audiences and more clients and more customers. And that's how I did it, along with some other routes that I did take for my business. But that's basically my humble beginnings. Hopefully down the line I could touch base on my first employers and my first jobs, etc. But that's how I got into fitness. And, next thing you know, I went to Montclair State University. I got a bachelor's degree in exercise science. And that's how I just became a personal trainer. I used my associate's degree from my community college. Then I used my bachelor's degree as a sales pitch to my clients when I worked at commercial gyms as well. I did my internship, etc. But we'll get into detail with that in another episode, because I do want to touch base on the questions that I had this past Monday on Question Mondays. So, first question before I let you guys go. First question I got was, are rest days really that important? Yes, rest days are very important. I would argue that rest days are as important, if not more important, than the actual workouts or your diet. Like I would maybe say 33, 33, 33. Like it's that important. A lot of people, they don't really, acknowledge rest days because, they get a little lazy, etc. But you could always manipulate those things, and I'll touch base on that. But rest days, you could just think about it like this. When you work out, and you get that pump, you get the tightness in your muscles, in your glutes, in your arms, etc. You have little micro tears in your muscles, which is healthy. You need that to build muscle. But if you get those excessive micro tears and you are, instead of taking a rest day to have them recover, you continue tearing them, you're going to be prone for more injury. It's almost like as if you get a paper cut, right? And you don't let it rest. You don't let anything touch it. It's almost like as if you keep scratching that paper cut. Next thing you know, it's going to become an actual opened wound where you could start bleeding instead of it's just bare skin, So you need that time to put that Band-Aid on, let's say hypothetically, metaphorically speaking, or, leave it alone where you need that rest day so that it could actually kind of crust and heal. So then you can eventually move that area again and properly and work out that area properly. Now, if you feel like you are so useless on your rest days, what you can do is something called an active rest, where whether you could go at the gym or go at home, where you can actually do mobility exercises, where you could stretch, where you could do maybe even calisthenics, very, very low reps, very low volume, volume meaning sets and reps, very, very low, maybe 2 sets of 10, 2 sets of 15. Even if you're an athlete, even if you're a beginner, something so small where you're just moving, but you're not actually working out to the point where you're sweaty or you have that pump, etc. So that's something you could do. You could take a half hour to stretch. You could take a half hour to foam roll. You could even take maybe 15, 20, or even 30 minutes of cardio, very, very light cardio, where you're doing literally a brisk walk, not even a jog, a brisk walk where you actually just break a little bit of sweat, but you have no, you're not stressing any muscle groups. That's something that you can do on your rest days where you feel like you're not doing much. All right. Next question. Exactly how many days do you recommend to work out? Now, I got that question and I thought it just depends on your goals. If you're trying to lose some weight, for example, obviously in general, in the macro, what you want to do is you want to burn as much calories as possible, let's say in a given week. So for argument's sake and playing devil's advocate, you would think, all right, then I have to work out every day. Okay, you could do that, but you have to do it in a smart way. Because again, take into account that first answer that I just told you about that first question, you do not want to risk any injury. So what I recommend, regardless of the goals, whether you're trying to lose weight, gain muscle, just be healthy, you never worked out before in your life, I would recommend anywhere between 2 to 3 times a week, just to kind of wake up those muscles, wake up those neural pathways, to engage your body, to introduce your body into exercise and functional movements, so that eventually you could get from 2 or 3 times a week to 4 or 5 times a week. Would I recommend every day? No. Let's say there's that gray area where you can maybe even do 5 times a week and then 2-day active rest. But I always tell my clients as a trainer to at least have 2 days rest. Just your body needs that, your mental needs it, etc. It's very tough to really think about the actual fact of working out every day and literally not taking a rest. Like, you're gonna get to a point where you might hit a plateau, you might hit depression, and that's just going literally over the spectrum. You might even get to the point where like you might even get injured. And guess what? You get injured, you're gonna have to stop working out completely for at least a few months then, or even a few weeks. Then you do that, you gain weight, you regress, and then what's gonna happen? You're gonna try to get back into it, and you're starting from, instead of starting off where you left off, you're starting off from like 10%. And that's something you do not want to do. All right. So, guys, this is episode 3. This is Humble Beginnings here at the Abarcast. I'm your host, Brian Abarca. Please stay tuned for my next episode. And again, just to remind you guys, pay attention to Question Mondays. Every Monday, make sure you are putting in your questions those days so that I can answer them briefly on Instagram and on social media, and then go into detail with every single question on my podcast here on my episodes. All right. It was a pleasure having you guys here. I love you all. Thank you so much, and have a great night.